Hello and welcome to Halftime Report. Well, it's 12 noon. We're half into the trading session. It's the first Halftime Report, in fact, of 2019. So wishing all our viewers a very, very happy New Year. I'm Nigel D'Souza, and with me today is Surbi Upadhyay. Hey, Surbi, happy New Year and wishing you a rocking 2019.
Thank you very much, Nigel, and a very, very happy New Year to you as well. A happy New Year to all of the viewers out there. May it be a wonderful, healthy, happy and prosperous 2019 for all of you. Well, we don't have too much to report on, considering I think, it's still pretty much holiday mood out there. But for what it's worth, market's been ambling along, and we've been in negative territory throughout today. Lots of the big boys have taken a back seat, whether it's the HDFC twins, whether it's the FMCG twins. You've got plenty of weakness. Even the metal stocks that were so excited till yesterday, there's a complete reversal today. So whether it's ferrous, non-ferrous, I mean, it just, reminds you about the after party scene where everybody's a little tired, worn out, just taking it a little easy, Nigel.
Maybe some of the traders will wake up at this point of time. Maybe they'll be getting ready, having breakfast, and maybe by 1 p.m. logging in and trying to punch some trades. But not very, very logical to keep the markets open today. But since it's open, let's just run our viewers through all the top stories.
Absolutely. All right. So let's take it away. Here are the headlines at this hour. It's thin and low volumes which are keeping the market flat on the first day of 2019. Nirmal Jain and Samir Arora say the first half of the year will be cautious, but they expect the market to fare better in the second half of the year.
And auto sales for the month of December gets off to a slow start. Maruti reports a decline of 1.3% in sales, with a 36% decline in exports, while expectations are that companies like Ashok Leyland will report a steep fall in sales for this month.
SEBI mandates physical settlement for all stock derivatives starting April this year. Deena Mehta says this is the best New Year gift from SEBI. Adds that the move will reduce expiry volatility with immediate effect.
Well, it's a breather for aviation companies as ATF prices are cut by more than 14% in Delhi. That's the second consecutive double-digit cut in 2 months, while liquor stocks like Radico Khaitan as well as United Spirits, they're under some pressure after the Maharashtra government hikes excise duty on Indian-made foreign liquor by 20%.
The Minister of State for Agriculture, Gajendra Singh, says the government won't rule out a universal basic income scheme. Adds that the government is studying several options. Bond yields jumped to 7.43% on prospects of higher fiscal deficit.
Okay, all right. Markets are, trading with a bit of a cut as we speak. The mid-cap index is doing a relative outperformance at this point of time. So let's get straight to some stocks that are moving and shaking around. And given that it's the first day of the month, we'll get to the auto sales numbers in just a bit. But for the time being, there's a breather coming in for aviation companies as ATF prices were cut. Sonia, over to you.
The ATF cut, as you rightly pointed out, it's the second consecutive cut that we're seeing. Now, last month as well, there was an 11% month-on-month cut we saw in ATF prices. This month, it's come in at, almost about 15-odd%. If you look at the key numbers, it's a 15% cut to 58,061 rupees per kiloliter in Delhi in the month of January. Now, ATF prices, as we know, account for 40% of the operating costs for aviation companies. In fact, the 3 listed airline companies reported a combined loss of almost 3,700 crores in the first half of FY19. That's a loss of 20 crores per day. So these 2 successive ATF price cuts will definitely boost the earnings of many of these companies. Now, if you look at the ATF price trends, January a cut of almost 15%, December a cut of 11% month on month. But before that, there were hikes that came in. In November, it was a hike of 5% month on month. In October, there was a fall, but before that, a hike of around 7.3% month on month. So, sum and substance is that this has been the steepest cut that we've seen, 2 successive double-digit cuts over the last 2 months, which is definitely a positive for aviation companies.
Okay, all right. Thanks very much, Sonia, for getting us that update on aviation stocks. But there are a couple of other movers and shakers out there. We have Anisha joining in on all the stocks that are in news today. Anisha, what's on your radar?
Good afternoon, Surabhi. Well, quite a few stocks actually. It's first of the month. I was thinking there won't be many stocks bouncing on back of news, but I found quite a few. First up, Kolte Patil. That one is moving higher in double digits after it got a rating upgrade from CARE, which has revised the outlook to positive from stable earlier. So a sentiment positive. Sentiment positive for a couple of these capex goods company as well, which have got some orders. So for example, GMC Project subsidiary has bagged an order worth around 596 crores and it's reacting positively. And similar is the case with CMI Limited, which has bagged an order of around 100 crores from the Indian Railways. Moving on to HCC. Now that one has been buzzing for the last few days. Remember, there was a rights issue that had happened and the promoters had pumped in quite a bit of money, and that's the reason the promoter stake has gone up, perhaps increasing and instilling confidence for other investors as well. And you can see the reaction in the stock. Moving on lastly to MEP Infrastructure, we had a conversation with the management. They have achieved a financial closure for a project worth around 1200 odd crores. This is a HAM project and they're expecting 3-4 more financial closures in the coming months. So positive there as well.
Okay, all right. Good finds, Anisha. On low volumes, you've found quite a few stocks that are news. But let's talk about the pharma stocks. And it's the first of the month, but of the new year. But Ekta is here. Ekta, you've got plenty of stocks in the news, eh?
Yes, pharmaceutical stocks withstand any kind of date and news, or rather, you know, calendar cycle, you'd rather say. So there are a couple of pharmaceutical stocks which are in focus. Lupin, which is in focus because they've got US approval for a seizure drug. So that market size of that particular drug is around 262 odd million. Shilpa Medicare is in focus, and that stock is in fact buzzing on account of the company getting a US approval for an injection which is in fact used for chemotherapy. So Shilpa Medicare is actually gaining because it's a couple of cancer drugs that they've now received approval for in terms of a portfolio. So that's a positive add-on. And lastly, Aurobindo is in focus because the US FDA has announced on their website that Aurobindo is going to be conducting a voluntary recall of 80 lots of a blood pressure drug, generic valsartan. Now remember that valsartan in fact had come into focus because of the cancer-causing substances which were found in the API initially by a Chinese company which manufactured it, ZH Pharma, and eventually that particular company got an import alert put. But there are multiple instances of blood pressure drugs across companies, you know, using APIs from different sources, finding this particular cancer drug. So there have been many voluntary recalls which have taken place. So this is the second recall which has taken place by Aurobindo. The first one was in October for another drug, and this is the second drug which they are recalling because of the fear or the traces of this particular cancer-causing substance, NDEA, occurring in the batches. So while it is a sentiment negative, it would probably be brushed off simply because many other companies have done it, and it's a kind of a global problem that the US FDA would be facing and trying to deal with.
Okay, thanks Ekta very much for that. Explains why there's not too much price damage on Aurobindo really. However, speaking of price damage, guess who's not feeling the high? Definitely liquor stocks, and that's because of a change in taxation in Maharashtra. Sonal has the details on this one. Sonal?
Well, Surabhi, it's a sober start of 2019 for all of us at CNBC TV 18, and similar is the case for all the liquor stocks as well. As you rightly pointed out, there is a change in the taxation for liquor, that is Indian-made foreign liquor. For all the liquor that is produced in the state of Maharashtra, the excise duty has been increased by around 20-odd%, and this is effective from 1st January of 2019. Well, remember, the IMFL market is around 20 million cases in the state of Maharashtra, and United Spirits, that has a huge market share of around 45 to 50% in Maharashtra. Well, I spoke to some analysts and they say that the company might not be able to pass on the hike in excise duty because already they are struggling with volume growth in Maharashtra itself. So something that is definitely a negative for the company today, and that's why we're seeing a downtick on the stock price.
All right, so a sober start, Sonal, for you. I don't know how the year is going to pan out, but nonetheless, we'll keep those stocks in focus. Thanks so much for joining and giving us those details. But let's move on then. And the much anticipated future retail Amazon deal has hit a roadblock owing to the recent changes in the FDI policy on e-commerce. Priya Seth joins us to tell us that in fact this particular deal is now in pause mode. Priya, over to you.
Well, the future retail Amazon deal seems to have hit a roadblock due to the changes in the FDI policy on e-commerce. Now, what we do understand at this point in time is that in its present form, the deal is very unlikely to go through, and therefore we understand that future retail and Amazon are likely to rework the deal contours in line with the new recent changes in the FDI policy. Do remember that the recent changes in the FDI policy on e-commerce say that an entity having equity participation by e-commerce marketplace entity cannot sell its products on the platform run by such a marketplace entity. And therefore, these changes are effective starting 1st February 2019. So therefore, we learned that Amazon is making a representation to the government to seek more clarity on such investments. They're also seeking clarity on the applicability of new norms for investments made through investment arms, and are also exploring legal options to understand a feasible investment structure. So at this point, we do understand that in the second week of February, there may be some more clarity on a potential deal structure, if any. But we'll keep you updated as to how this shapes up. But important to note that Amazon has been in talks to buy 9.5% stake in future retail with the option to hike stake at a later date. So this is a space that we will continue to watch. We did reach out to both the companies. An email to Future Retail did not elicit a response. Amazon said that they did not comment on speculation of what they may or may not do.
Okay, Priya, thanks very much for getting us the latest. In fact, I mean, Future Retail hasn't responded immediately, but we did catch up with Mr. Bayani just a couple of days ago to get his take on the updated FDI policy for e-commerce. And this is what he had to tell us when we asked him about deals within the Future Group. Take a look.
Being in the market and being one of the leading players, we constantly are in discussion with every other player in terms of what can we do together. So I think within the contours of any policy, it continues, the discussion continues. So I don't know about a particular transaction or a particular thing which I can comment upon, but I believe the policy was already existing B2B. So there is nothing which has changed for us. Any transaction which we do will be at a group level in terms of what synergies we can build, because we have a supply chain business, we have a FMCG business, we have a fashion business. So we bring in the strength of the entire country's distribution, and we operate in more than 355 cities and towns. So what we bring in our strength has to be complemented with other people's strength, which can create something better.
Okay, here's a quick recap of all the buzzing stocks we just covered. We have aviation stocks, Jet Airways, Interglobe Aviation, as well as SpiceJet. And there are a whole host of pharma names, Lupin, Oro Pharma, Shilpa Medicare, and then the liquor stocks, Radico, United Spirits, and also the exclusive that we got you on Future Retail. What a flow that was, eh? You fly high, then there were aviation stocks and there were liquor stocks as well.
Liquor stocks, and hard landing for the liquor stocks, at least today on the first. It is that time of the month when auto companies release their monthly sales numbers. So we've already got the lowdown from Maruti, and it is an absolute slow gear. Actually, it's not even first gear, it's reverse gear that Maruti has gone into. We have Sonia joining in on the details with the numbers and, of course, expectations from the rest of the lot. Not a great start, Sonia, from Maruti.
The numbers from Maruti are looking weak. There's a big hit in exports this time around, and that's what's dragged down the overall number. The Maruti sales this time have fallen by 1.3% versus some brokerage expectations of a growth of 4.5%. And this is the lowest sales that we've seen at least over the last 15 months. We backtracked and we saw the lowest that we saw was same time last year when it was 1.3 lakh units. This time around it's gone to about 1.28 lakh units. And over the last say 4 or 5 months, if you look at it, in November it was 1.5 lakhs, in October it was 1.4 lakhs, in September 1.6, and in August 1.5. So clearly this is a big slowdown that we're seeing in sales, led not just by exports, but if you look at different segments, then it's the mini car segment, which is, your Alto, your Wagoner, which has seen a 14% slide this time around. Not just that, the compact car segment as well is down by almost about 4.8 odd %. So not looking good at all as far as Maruti is concerned.
Okay, all right, Sonia, thanks so much for that. Well, to analyze these numbers and what's the outlook going ahead, we're currently joined by Ashwin Patil, research analyst at LKP Securities. Hi, Ashwin. First of all, wishing you a very, very happy New Year. We are happy to know that besides us, even you guys are working. So that's good news. But tell us, Maruti's numbers came out around an hour and a half or so ago. Didn't look very, very good. Because there was a bit of a degrowth in comparison to the growth that we're working with. But bulk of the miss was because of exports, right? how would you read these numbers?
First of all, wishing you all a very happy new year. And see, first set of numbers are coming from the pack of Maruti, and rest will be following today. First of all, speaking on Maruti, I would say that see, the negativity which was there in the lackluster festive season has continued in this month as well. And we think that December, as it is, it's a weak month. And on the top of that, Maruti generally takes a shutdown, biannual shutdown in the month of June as well as in December. So hopefully the company has done that in this month, and that's why the numbers are looking slightly on the weaker side. That's one point. And secondly, on month-on-month basis, definitely the numbers are looking weak because even though the festive season was lackluster, definitely November is better than December. And that's why month-on-month decline is seen. On the year-on-year decline, I would say that the mini segment, the Alto Wagoner, has declined by about 14%. And one of the reasons I would say that the sentimental atmosphere or whatever we can say about sentiments, the overall sentiments are quite negative in the passenger vehicle segment. Starting from October itself, when the interest rates were high and the fuel prices were high. And definitely, we know that December is weak because generally there is a postponement of buying because everybody wants a new year of registration on their vehicle. So that is another point. So overall, if we look at the numbers, I would say that Maruti, is in a weak lane this time. And also there are no new launches which I've seen over the past few months. So obviously this kind of decline is expected. Yeah.
So Ashwin, the question is whether this is a blip, just a temporary one. We've already seen it 2 months in a row, or whether this is going to continue for a while. What is the kind of monthly run rate you are expecting on Maruti and also on the two-wheelers? Again, we are expecting muted sales even from Hero Motor this time around. But as we're getting into election season, what is the kind of monthly rate you're expecting this company to do? See, a monthly rate of about 140 is quite expected for Maruti going on from here, because we know that December is a weak month, and this kind of numbers are definitely going to come. But going forward from Jan onwards, I think Jan, Feb, March, still the numbers will be improving on month-on-month basis, and maybe on year-on-year basis as well. The decline or the growth may be not that great, maybe about 1 or 2% on YOY basis, maximum 3%. So overall year, this year I would expect Maruti to grow close to about 6 to 7% only. All right. So expecting a pickup from January onwards, looking at them clocking a run rate of around 1.4 lakh units on a monthly basis. Let's talk about the other big number then. Ashok Leyland, all eyes on that. The street is working with a bit of a degrowth, right, in terms of their sales numbers. Your take on the stock as well as your expectations? See, Ashok Leyland definitely this month will be putting up a fall in sales, maybe about 4 to 5%. And we know that the overall CV, the CV industry is working on a high base, which was there last year. And because of that, we may see a slightly lower growth rate, maybe a decline, as I said earlier, in Ashok Leyland as well as in Tata Motors CV numbers. And going forward now with elections coming up and the run-up to the elections, I would say that the government would be pushing infrastructure reforms, etc., before the elections happen, and that's why Jan, Feb, March onwards, I think again there will be a pickup in the CV sales. And we know that BS6 is also getting implemented by April 2020. So this run-up will be expected to continue beyond the elections as well. Okay, same question, Ashwin. On the two-wheeler makers, Hero Moto and even Bajaj, and specifically, I mean, domestic, because I'm trying to get the domestic comparison. What is the monthly run rate you're expecting as we get into the election period? So Jan, Feb, March, are we going to see numbers pick up, or do you expect sales to be flat for the two-wheelers?
See, two-wheelers, we have seen a weak November, and for Hero MotoCorp particularly. And before that, October, September, the months were quite good. November, we saw, a subdued kind of numbers. So even December, I would be expecting a similar kind of run rate, 6,20,000 or something, in that range. And going forward, then again, Jan onwards, as I said, for Maruti, I would expect a slight pickup in Hero sales as well, because now, the...
6 lakh per month, you're talking about Hero MotoCorp sales?
Yes, 6,20,000 per month.
Okay.
It was 6,10,000 in November, 6,20,000 we are expecting in December, and a pickup from there we are expecting in Jan, maybe 650 or, somewhere in between 650 to 7 lakhs.
So, Ashwin, you're expecting for Hero MotoCorp, you're expecting a 6 lakh number even in December?
Just about 6 lakh, 5 lakh 90 to about 6 lakh units.
Interesting. So there's a bit of a divergence in terms of estimates as well out there, because I've got a brokerage note coming in from Motilal. They're expecting a number closer towards 5 lakhs. So we'll keep that in mind.
Okay.
What about Royal Enfield? What kind of a number are you working with out there? There's so much of talk that it's coming on a high base. The company, as it is, in terms of valuations, always got higher multiple because of the kind of growth. What kind of a number are you working with this time around?
I do not track Royal Enfield, but I would say that even Royal Enfield is in a weaker lane, just like how Hero is performing. So because we have seen a good run up in their premium motorcycles over the past 1 year, and over the past few months we are seeing slight softness in those numbers as well. So maybe on higher base, we would expect them to post slightly lower growth as compared to earlier.